Welcome to Grit Happens. I'm Mindy Stearns. To know him is to love him. I'm talking about my husband, CEO, founder, entrepreneur, businessman, father, outlier, overcomer, underdog. This is Grit Happens with Glenn Stearns.
You're getting good at that.
I know. I love introducing you. I should do that every time you walk in a room.
That's in the bedroom. That'd be fun.
Oh, no, you're not getting that. I'm sorry. You do not get a big fanfare. It's enough that I'm in there waiting for you, darling.
That's right. That's right.
So, the last couple episodes, we learned about you. You told your story. We heard your history because it's such I've heard it 1,000 times, twice told, but I love your story. I am proud of you. I am in awe of you. I respect you.
Thank you. Enough. Move on to our guest.
Right. I
please.
want something. I need shoes.
So
I need
waiting.
some more shoes because I've been walking around the house like crazy. I need some new slippers. But we have, one thing you do really well is you find people. You've got a really good aspect for Blink and seeing good people with good moral compasses and great work ethic. And you've surrounded yourself with an incredible group of people and just your team. And one of your team members, a very crucial, important one, is on the phone with us today.
The architect.
The architect, as we like to call him, because he's creative. He's a man of many skills and many accomplishments. He manages our family. He's our family business office lawyer. He's very intelligent, went to Harvard. He's an accomplished author, and he's got many other skills. He's got musical talents, and so he's a father too, and a husband, and a grandfather, and he's our friend.
And a wonderful writer.
Yes, he's got so many skills. So can you say hello to your friend?
Hello, Richard. Are you there? I see you.
Hello, Glenn. Hello, Mindy. How are you? And I am here. Quarantined, but here.
Yeah. But here, I'm so excited to have you with Glenn here because, I've said before that there are a few men in my life that I hold very high in esteem and trust, and you are up there with my father, brother, and my husband. And
that's nice.
It's an honor to have you as part of our family and our team. And, we met you how many years ago with...
Gosh, it's got to be, at least 15, 16 years ago.
I think we're going into our 16th year now.
Wow. Okay. That's a friendship.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
That's right. And I would say that, a lot of my, besides the beautiful friendship, but a lot of my success in what people see on the outside, and they think, wow, look at all that I've been able to accomplish. People don't know what's behind, an accomplishment of anybody. It takes a team, and Richard is one of the very most important parts of that team. And so I've been very not only honored but comforted by having you by our side for our family in business, but also in just the fact that I know if I get hit by a truck one day, that you're going to be able to swoop in and really be able to take care of the family, take care of our businesses, and help kind of make that transition in anything. And I don't just mean get hit by a truck, but like when times come where you've got, crazy, swings in the economy or in personal issues, you're there for us. So it's really comforting to know that, you've been such an integral part of our lives over the last 16 years, Richard. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Glenn. I feel honored too, and I also like to say that there's more to this team than just me, but there's quite a number of good people that are all around protecting you and being caring for you, and for me it's always been kind of a ministry of sorts, just because I really do see that there are people like you in the world that not only can be successful, but you can accomplish and touch a lot of other lives beyond just making money. And so ultimately, I want to preserve the money and help, but I also want to give you the opportunity and help you get the vision to see those things that you've already done and continue to do. Those are incredibly important things, and it's nice to be part of that also.
So we call this podcast Grit Happens because I think that's a really important aspect of success for people that are trying to make something of their lives. And Glenn obviously has in a very public forum with the success of the Discovery Show, Undercover Billionaire, that you did, that showed people how to become successful. And I think one of the big elements why we wanted to have you on today is you've written 2 books. One is called The Fables of Fortune, what rich people have that you don't want, and Entitlemania, for everything you give your child, you take something away. And I think kind of a common thing, if you can expand on that, is the importance of grit in life, in success, and in the stories of the people that you have managed, and the many stories that you've told of the successful individuals in your life that have had you in their sphere. Do you see a theme in a lot of the success in that we can apply to Glenn and what he has created?
Yeah, let me back up one step and talk about Secret Billionaire just for a second, because
Undercover.
I just want to let everybody know that Glenn called me and said, I really need my lawyer in this deal. He needs to be seen. You got to come to Miami. And I jumped on a plane, flew to Miami, spent 3 days with people filming me, of which all of it never got off the cutting room floor. So in terms of my importance, in this thing, it was like turned out to be 0, but I'm okay with all that.
Richard,
don't feel bad.
Hold on. I did a Skype call every night for 90 days and not one made it. I'm clearly not
Richard
important
Branson got cut. John
Elway got cut. All those.
Richard Watts.
I was in good company.
You're in very good company.
I feel better.
That's right. Hey, but before you go on too, I do want to say to the people out there that, and regarding that show about, it was about showing how to, have it, an idea turn into something successful. And it comes, and if you saw the show, it was a real simple recipe, which was surround yourself with great people. And so this is taking it to another level. When you do have some level of success and you can surround yourself with professionals, and mentors, right? Like when you start out, you don't have a lot of money. So you find mentors, you find people that can obviously, I hear your bells ringing.
Is the church
Richard.
bells ringing right now, Richard? Just curious. Like, is it time for mass?
But to hit on that point, you find people that you can surround yourself with in.
I'm sorry. What is that noise?
It's not done. It has to take. The bell has to toll 6 times.
Okay.
Is it a doorbell or is it?
No, this is a clock in my study here at the office.
Right.
That's 'cause we kept
that
you
would
on.
drive me cuckoo.
Yeah. It's done now for another hour.
All
Okay,
right.
we'll be wrapped
Good.
up before that.
But the end of that thought was, when you're just getting started, you don't have a lot of money, you surround yourself with mentors and people that can help you. And when you do, achieve some level of success, you do need to invest in yourself. You do need to surround yourself with professionals, whether that be lawyers or whether it be other consultants and people that can help you. It's very important. And so please go on, Richard. But that's part of why you're in our lives, besides just being a wonderful friend. Course.
Yeah, it's interesting that, and I've never thought of it this way, but you talk about the word grit, and I think about the soft side of grit. And when I mean the soft side of grit is when people are willing to ask for help. There needs to be that part too. It can't just be buckle down, don't look, don't think, just go. When you and I first met, we were at a ranch up in eastern Idaho or Oregon it was. And you and I were roommates, and here you were, this already incredibly successful guy, very well known on all the magazines and all the social functions. Your picture and Mindy's picture was always there. And yet, by the time we got done, I'll never forget you leaning over after kind of hearing what I did and just simply saying, I need your help.
Yeah, I remember.
And I just
day.
thought to myself, who does that?
I think
who has the humility to just say, I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at, and let's just see if what you do, the puzzle piece fits in. And sometimes it doesn't with people, but see if that puzzle piece fits in. And so that soft side of grit is really about recognizing when you need a mentor and when you need help. And you did that incredibly well.
What that day was that weekend was a life changer for me, if you recall. You know, I was asked to go hunting with Robert Schuller, if you guys remember him from the Hour of Power in the Crystal Cathedral. And so we flew up, and that was you and myself and Robert in a plane. That's when I met you, and we landed, and then we got into a helicopter, and I remember Robert going, "You see that jet? That's one of the guys that's going to be there," and that
It's a
G5,
parking lot of private jets.
these-
I remember you telling
right,
me that.
and it was everybody's plane that was going to be up at the ranch hunting, and so we get in this helicopter and we take up, off and down the river, and we land in this great big, just lodge lawn, and
It's like a compound.
yeah, exactly. And we get in there, and I remember, like, when you go to sit down
You have a
for
round
breakfast,
table and you have a discussion.
and everybody talks. Well, the one main man who held court, Foster Freeze, if you guys
Freeze,
know
yeah.
him, he says, "Hey, instead of us all cross talking, why don't we start with you? Let's get to know who you are and a little bit about yourself." And I was next to that guy, and I thought, "Oh no, like, how do I fit in?" And I think a lot of us go through that, where we say, "What can I show people, that I belong?" And
Makes me credible that I
makes me
should be
credible.
here.
I'm going to go buy a Bentley, or I'm going to go buy this, fancy whatever to show people that I'm successful. Well, I start thinking along those lines. How can I fit into my story
I've had some success.
That I've had some
I
success.
belong here.
But the first guy that spoke, he didn't speak about his toys or any of that. He spoke about making a difference in the world, and a lot of different things that were really heartfelt. And yet I realized he was very successful, but none of the individual
The bravado.
bravado, it didn't show, and then, and again, this is when I knew there were a God too. There was a God, because it didn't go to me. Like I said, it went the other way.
Thank goodness.
And I got to listen to every single person, including Richard. And I remember what you spoke about, Richard, also, which had to do with about your father and yourself being a Mason. And
It's funny you remember that.
yeah, and I just, all of the stories, it didn't have to do with, again, toys and success related to money. And then, by the time it got to me, by the way, it wasn't even that morning. We left.
It
and
was
went
another
hunting.
day, wasn't it?
We went through people, and it took half an hour on each person.
You grew in that 24
I did.
hours.
And by the time it got to me, I realized what was important in my life. And it wasn't fancy cars and houses. It was, that I had grown up, in a family that wasn't exactly the most of healthy families, and had a child at a young age at 14, and all the other things. And I was crying. I remember, Richard, I'm like in front of all these men, and I've got tears, and and it was a wonderful kind of experience to meet people who were genuine and didn't want anything other than a friendship, that came together out of having their own confidence in who they were. And so that was Richard's and my first weekend.
Do you think that is typical? Maybe, Richard, you can speak to this, that a lot of young entrepreneurs who start out just feel like they have to prove themselves. I have to be something. I'm going to acquire all this material, these toys around me to show everyone I'm success. Is that something of maturity that gets there, or is it time, or what? Or can someone have it in the beginning? Or what do you think? Is it an evolution?
Well, I think that it evolves with and without money, right? So you don't just have people with money that have these issues. People without money come to a place in their lives where they realize that, that it really isn't about the destination, the thing that everyone puts in front of us that says the only way you win is if you get to the end, to that destination, which is glorified by Instagram and Facebook and all these things that make it look like you're successful. But really, people that begin to realize that it's not only the journey that counts, but it's my story. It's not that I want to live someone else's story and maybe do a better job, or I want to live someone else's story never being able to match up to their job because I'm never going to get where they got. I need to find out what my story is and what drives me to be passionate about something. And I think that probably is the biggest key in all of it, is that driving at a financial target doesn't really satisfy passion. There's a big hole in all of us we want to fill, and money and the things, we try to fill that hole, but it just doesn't. But it really is discovering your passion. And what at the core of all of this is the one thing you do so well that makes you special at it. Because when you get that passion, the energy that comes from that is what drives people to great heights.
That's right.
So do you have a story? Do you have a story about Glenn that comes to mind when you tell this, or did you have one you had?
No, I was just going to talk about story for a second and then jump in, Richard. But, what I learned a lot from you, again, we've had 16 years together, is that story, your own story, right, is so important that you do write that story. And there have been so many times I've been in the middle of some pretty hairy situations, and I realize I stop and go, this is going to be the best part of the story. And when you think along those lines, then I think it takes the fear away. It takes away the, the uncertainty of what you're doing, and realizing that you're going to get through it, and it might be, a hard chapter, but it's going to be okay, and you've been wonderful at being able to look at situations and make sure there's a good story in there,
It's interesting that it kind of started with me when I was 36 years old. My mom had died when I was 34 of cancer. Mm-hmm. And my dad got ill very quickly thereafter and died at 36. And I decided to spend every morning with him for the last 6 months of his life. I went over to his condo and we spent time together. He was very successful. And ultimately I remember that the night before that he died, he basically said, I really love you for coming by every day at 8:00. You're not going to need to come by tomorrow. And I said, oh yeah, Dad, come on. Well, I got a call at 5:00 in the morning that he in fact had died. And I went over to his house. I was there in 5 minutes, and I put my hands on his chest, and it was still warm. Mm-hmm. And I just looked at him and I thought, something, everything that he did that wasn't to benefit other people, which he did a lot to benefit other people, but everything he did that didn't benefit other people doesn't matter anymore. Mm. And the stuff that he did to benefit me, to give me good lessons as a son, to give me good ethics about things, the things that he did to be in other people's lives, to give them a window to look into something that was meaningful to them, those things lasted. And boy, it was a big moment in my life that I said, I am never going to drive for the world's view of success ever again. I'm going to drive to be in other people's lives and to create a ministry of my side that really believes in making life worthwhile and helps other people discover their passions and what really will help drive them to great heights.
Yeah, no, I could give 1,000 examples of how you've turned everyday situations into something exciting. I'll tell you a fast little quick story, has nothing to do with anything, but one time you came out to Jackson Hole and we said, well, let's put something up on the street sign so people know which street is ours, because there's, they all look
hidden
alike.
Street, you couldn't find it, right?
So we bought a little owl and went to go put it out there.
A plastic barn owl.
I wonder if we're gonna get in trouble for putting something up on the street lamp. So we wait till there's no cars, and we run out there and we get this ladder and we go to put this up there, and I put the ladder up and then I start to climb up the thing and we're going to tie it up. And what's Richard doing? He's playing with his phone. I can't figure it out. And then he finally hits play and he puts it down. And it's all this. It's the music from Mission Impossible, right?
Yeah.
And it's going and
creating
we're
a story.
Put this darn owl up on the post. It was hilarious.
That owl's still up there, by the way.
Yeah.
That's been a few years.
Well, and you know something, it's interesting that if you just dream about things you can do, especially when they involve other people, and that was just fun with you and me. But for instance, yesterday, there's a woman that I've been around for about 20 years, and she's 75 years old. And she lives in a mansion up on the hill, up in Orange County, up in the hills there that she built. Looks like the Getty Museum. And she's all by herself. Husband has passed away. Kids are all grown and gone. And she called me night before last, and she said, it's amazing how lonely it is up here with this COVID-19 and stuff. And she says that I'm at risk, and it's a lonely thing. And I thought, what would be the weirdest thing, you talk about your owl, that I could do? Well, I know she has a home in Hawaii and she loves Hawaiian music. So I went over yesterday. I drove 30 miles I got an umbrella out. I knew she was coming home from the doctor's, and right outside her big iron gate, I sat down in a lawn chair with an umbrella over my head and started playing the ukulele. And when she came in, I serenaded her as she pulled into her gate and stopped. She saw me, and again, I've been in her life for 20 years, and she just sat there looking, and that to her was so meaningful that someone would go out of their way, drive up into the hills, serenade her like that, that she just rolled down the window and just started crying.
Oh,
And you know, and those to me are like Glenn Stearns. That's creating a story. That's something I want to know that I did, and I did it yesterday. And I want to know what story can I do tomorrow? You know, what are those things that mean something to somebody?
So I think when I look back on business, when I look at family, and I think about, you know, why I think, at least especially in business, I've had a lot of positive feedback on how much people wanted to work at our companies. It was because we were able to create moments and create, you know, instances where people really felt
part of something
bigger
like
than just coming to work, right? And I mean, same with family. I can think of, again, so many stories, and it's so important, I think, for a person, if they're getting off the ground and they're starting anything, again, their own business, or they are starting a new job or a new family, that they find those times, and you've been great at that, to where they can stand out, you know, and they can make a difference. I think of a story with family. I can think of so many right now, but when you remember when Mindy, when one day 2 of my sons both lost a tooth.
Oh, jeez.
And at the same day. So the one lost a tooth when he was drinking out of a water fountain, and it was wiggled, and it fell off and went right down into the drain. And he was so upset that he couldn't find his tooth. And he came home, and he said he lost his tooth. He doesn't know what to do. And my other son says, "Well, I've got mine." So they went to bed. We were sitting up, having watching television, and out comes Colby. He's so upset. "Dad, Trevor stole my tooth." He stole my tooth. "What do you mean?" "Well, I looked under my pillow and there was a little piece of paper that looked like a fake tooth. And he stole my tooth and put it under his pillow." And so we went and fixed the situation. But the next morning, you know, and talk about, these are the times when, you know, you have an opportunity, right? They both look under their pillows, and there is Colby, who had his tooth. And there's what's left now is a $5 bill. And there's Trevor. He lifts it up, and there is a piece of paper. With it is tied 2 quarters, taped 2 quarters, and it says, "Crime does not pay."
That was a teachable moment right there.
But when we have those teachable moments, right, you know, and whether they're, you know, to discipline or whether they're to celebrate, we need to, you know, do our best at making sure we do that. And again, you've been excellent at doing that and helping me, you know, remember these moments. And again, when it comes to a business, you really have to get people to really want to come to work and be excited. And maybe that means you do something. You think about these people that make movies and how they make practical jokes on each other, you know, whatever it is, but you have to create bonding opportunities and stories, you know.
Well, I think you have to take a chance too, because, you know, a lot of people get very cynical about their employees, and they say all they want is their money, and they don't care about me, and loyalty is, you can't buy loyalty anymore. But the truth is, you have to take a chance.
That's right.
That you will surround yourself with good people that do care about you, and the money becomes secondary to the whole thing. And there are those people out there in the process. You might get hurt. You know, there are people that are out there, you know, looking out after themselves only. But you really do have to build a team, understanding that everybody's human, and no one's perfect. And ultimately, you need to be the best example of all of them. And I need to be the best example in my world, so that people realize that I really walk the talk and not just do it to look good.
That's right.
I think there's a lot of that out there. People, you know, trying so hard to be relevant and trying so hard to say, and many people take shortcuts, and many people try to do it the easy way. And people, a lot of young people come out and want success today. They want it now. They want it right as they get out of college and graduate. But there's something to be said about the delayed gratification and the grit and the things. Can you speak to that a little bit? Because I know Glenn is probably somebody who is really good at delayed gratification.
Yeah, you guys really are. I mean, your boys and your daughters are, and I know them well, and I'm not just saying this. If I was the neighbor that was being asked, how good have they done with their kids, and you gave me that immunity to be able to be honest, I would tell you that they're just absolutely wonderful, respectful kids. And I know that comes from not giving everything that they want. And also to be honest with you, I think that part of that delayed gratification issue is modeling that we as parents don't have anything we want every time we want it, that we show our kids that sometimes we need to wait for stuff.
Right. Glenn, tell the story about your oldest boy. I think that's a good one on delayed gratification, who came to you in 8th grade.
8th grade, and he said that he wanted to go to the D.C. New York trip.
In the spring. This was in the fall.
And, of course, we lived in California. And he says, the trip cost $2,500. Can he go? I said, of course you can go. I mean, I am excited, son. And matter of fact, I'm even willing to pay for half of the trip. And he said, half the trip? How am I going to come up with $1,250?
Now, you could have written a check. That could have been easy to do.
I was excited for
and
him
he
to
would have
go.
got what he wanted. But you chose a different route.
So we said, well, let's think of how you can make that money. Again, it comes down to not just the act of working, but also the thought process of problem solving for yourself, right? So, so he had to go through the list of what he could do, and he was listing things, and finally came up with maybe mowing the yard. And I said, well, let's go find out from the gardener how often he mows it, how much he charges me, because he does a lot of other things. And so we found out that he charged me $50 every time he mows the lawn. And we did the math, and if he was to mow the lawn twice a week, he'd have more than enough money. So, of course, we had to go out and buy a $1,250 lawnmower, which he didn't, we didn't add into that. But because it was more again, the journey, as you say. And he started cutting the grass. I remember the first time he cut the grass, Dad, cut the grass. I said, great, don't move. I left work, I ran home, and I walked that yard with him. Missed a spot, missed a spot, missed a spot.
Yeah.
And he was so upset with me. And I said, son, the next time if you miss a spot, it's $10 off. The next time, 20, next time 30. You might end up paying me to cut the grass. When you do a job, you do it right. And so he went back and did it. 4 days later, he calls me, Dad, cut the grass. I said, great, don't move. I run home, walk the yard with him, shook his hand. Congratulations. Did a great job. So he did this for the whole entire fall and winter. And finally, he gets about a couple weeks out, I think a week out, and he has got $500 extra. Now, he had to keep $100 in his account.
But he could not drain it.
Could not drain it. So he had enough money to go out and get himself a PlayStation. And he bought one, but he didn't think about the tax. And he ended up having to come up with extra tax, so he ended up with like $60 left in his account. And now it's the day before he's supposed to leave. And he says, Dad, I have all the money, but I'm a little short on my $100 buffer. And I said, son, we have a deal. If you don't have the money, you can't go. No, but Dad, I can cut the grass today. I can finish cutting the grass. I said, well, then cut the grass. But if you don't, you can't go. And so he goes out, he cuts the grass, and we're inside, and he comes in, and he's completely defeated. I said, what's wrong? He said, it's dark, and I can't finish the grass. I said, well, you can't go then. What do you mean? But I go, no, a deal's a deal. We have a deal.
Heartbreaking.
And I mean, he left. He was so sad.
Defeated.
But that was the deal. And you looked at me, Mindy, like, gosh, you're heartless. And so I walked downstairs. I went into the cabinet. I found a flashlight, tapped him on his shoulder, said, let's go. I mean, the neighbors must have thought we were just crazy, but I sat in front of him with that flashlight and walked for another half an hour while he finished the grass, and he cut it, and he had enough money now to go. And I said, congratulations. He gave me my money. He got to go on his trip, and off he went. And then when he, on that summer, he had to write an essay to get into some school or something he was doing. And they said, what are you most proud of? And he says, I'm most proud I paid my way to that thing. And you know what? And that's something you can't give somebody, right? They have to earn it.
Right.
And those are some of those moments that you talk about, Richard. Just, you know, when you see one like that, you grab it and you take it. You know, you just can't let opportunity like that go away to allow somebody to build their own grit, matter of fact, right?
Yep.
And especially in a world like you with your Entitlemania book, you know, we want to shelter our children. We want to give them things we never had. We want to do all those things. And yet we're taking away the most valuable part of their being, which is have that pride of being able to accomplish things on their own without the help of, you know, mom and dad or whoever.
Yeah, and what happens there is that oftentimes, you know, that's something done out of love. It's the best of intention. And I think that's where parents, you know, have got to realize that that's really the loving issue can be the deterrent. You know, I love my kids so much, I don't want them to struggle.
Right.
And what you do is there's this belief that you can transfer the same pride that you got earning it. You can transfer it by just giving it. So, you know, the car, the trip for $2,500, the mowing the lawn, you know, you could have easily cut a check.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is many parents think they can transfer that same pride in going on that trip and enjoying that trip by not making them go through the effort and the struggle to get to that place. And pride can only be earned yourself by struggling and accomplishing and falling down and getting back up. And as parents, if we really think about it, it's really good parenting to look for areas where you can help your child run smack dab into struggle.
That's right.
Right smack dab into it. And then affirm them like you did with a flashlight, affirm them trying to work their way out of it. In other words, let me help you. I'm not here to hurt you.
Right.
But I want to help you, and here's a way through this. And so you kind of help a little bit. You know, you don't go hire a tutor, and you didn't go hire a gardener to do his job. You know, you helped him get through it himself.
Right.
And then subsequently, all three boys mowed lawns.
They did.
They stuck that. They ran that lawnmower to the ground. We got our money's worth out of that thing.
We
and
sure did.
And each boy then, in turn, would mow the lawn when the other one came along, and they would. That's how they had their money for gas, for entertainment, for savings. That was and now they know. They've never asked for anything. They've never expected or demanded.
They have never asked for a penny. I mean, they are independent. You know, and, you know, our youngest was the one that found the paper tooth and put it under his brother's pillow. You know, he was probably our wild child, I guess you'd call him. And I always was worried about him and how he would fare in the world. I remember a time, again, you know, when they were young and he had run into a little trouble. His older brother.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell the story till he was married.
He won't listen to this.
No, he won't be listening. He will not. He didn't even watch your show.
That's right.
Until you were like,
he won't listen. He's fine. But the older son had come to me and said, "Dad, somebody stole my money." And I said, "No one stole your money, son. Come on, let's go look." So we're upstairs. We're looking around, and you know, I'm looking for him. And then I go into his brother's bedroom and I look and I open up this little piggy bank, and neatly rolled in the piggy bank are 2 20s and a 10. I said, "How much did you lose, son?" He says, $50. I'm like, God, there's $50 in Trevor's piggy bank. So I opened the window and I called down. Trevor and Colby are in the pool. I said, "Trevor," excuse me. I said, "Trevor." "Yes, Dad." I said, "Can you come up here?" "Yes, Dad." First off, I knew that was something wrong because he never answered me that quick. And but I said, "Come on up." So he came up, and I thought about it real quick, and I said, "You wouldn't happen to know anything about Skylar's money. He's misplaced some money. I didn't accuse him. And he turns to me and he says, He says, Mom gave me $20 for my birthday, and you'd given me $10 for my chores. And I thought, wow, I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad
He's creating an alibi.
Yeah, well, I didn't. And then I thought, I'm glad I didn't accuse him. And I thought, well, why did he create this alibi, right? And so I turned to him then and I said, Trevor, did you steal Skylar's money? And he looks at me. He goes, yes. And now I'm like, shoot, how do you, he's telling the truth.
You don't want to punish him for telling the truth, but
what
the
he's done
action,
is wrong.
right.
So I thought about it again for a second, and then I thought, all right, get your shoes on. Let's go. Like, what? I go, get your shoes on. So get your shoes on, and he and I, off we go in the car, and we leave. And you and I had a dinner that night, Mindy.
Yes, I remember that
But
well.
I left, and we drive a few miles, park the car, come on, son, up the steps, open the door, walk in, and I say, all right, ma'am.
Tell him where you drove him.
I drove him to the police department.
Oh, no kidding.
And I got out. I said, ma'am, this is my son. He is stolen from the family.
Committed a crime.
We don't accept that in this family, and I'm turning him in. And she's like, she was in shock. She's like, I'll be right back. She goes, and out comes this big cop with the gun. Everything comes out. What's the problem? I said, well, officer, this is my son. He's stolen from the family. We do not tolerate that in our family, and I'm turning him in. And he's like, he looks at me, looks at him, looks at me again. He goes, come with me. And also my heart is pounding, right? I'm boom, boom. I go around the corner. I think, am I in trouble for screwing with a kid? Like, what's happening?
Child Protective Services.
I turn the corner with him, and he quickly turns around and says, what do you want me to do? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't think this far. Like, this is as far as I got. And he's like, all right, hang on. So he goes around the corner. You tell me what happened, son. My brother punched me, so I stole him. Two wrongs don't make a right. And this cop had so many great.
Educated him right then and there.
Comebacks.
And it wasn't you educating him. That's the
Exactly.
best part. It was someone else.
And so.
Big police officer.
So finally he says, son, do you know what jail's for? He says, jail's for bad people. And I can tell you're a good person. You just made a bad choice. So I tell you what, I'm going to cut you a break. And so I come walking back. Oh, officer, thank you so much. We really appreciate this. You have no idea that we get to have our son back. And so I take him, and as we turn around, he's kind of got a smile on his face like, got away with another one. That's just Trevor's MO. And I'm thinking, oh, great. So we drive home, and then you jump on me. Where have you been? We got to go to dinner. And I'm like, be right with you. I grab a loaf of bread, a couple of things of water. Let's go, Trev. We go upstairs, take him into our bathroom, take him to the water closet. Here's water, bread. There's a toilet. You got a phone in there. Here's a blanket. You're in jail till 10 a.m. Do not come out.
Oh, my goodness. I haven't heard that.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that.
Do not come. And I wonder if I'll get in trouble for this, but still, I said, you're in jail till 10
He
a.m.
wasn't locked, but he
No.
was under strict orders to sleep.
He was quarantined.
Quarantine.
And so 10 a.m., I come home from work. I open the door. I said, you've served your time. We will never discuss this again. And we have never discussed it.
Nope.
And then, except, again, I'll wait till
And you
his
told him he couldn't talk about
his
it
wedding
and
or
joke,
something.
and you just don't make light
That's
of it.
it. And then about a week later, a couple of days later, I got an email from the teacher who says, we do not know what's come over Trevor, but he's become the most exemplary student.
It worked.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
He sent that
That's
to
a
the
great
police
example.
officer.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
great example. And the other thing I would say too is that it's not just we do with our kids. That's part of it. You remember a community used to be involved in the raising of all kids,
The village,
right.
yeah,
And-
that was.
and that doesn't happen anymore because everybody's afraid.
Right.
But the fact is you can still mentor young people, and I don't mean really young, but when they're 12 and 13 and 14 and 15, it's amazing how you can speak into their lives very quickly and give them the affirmation that just nobody else is giving them.
That's right.
I had to go to Vegas about 6 months ago, and I was invited to be on this ad hoc board for 12 people, and we all flew in for this think tank. And there was this Hispanic guy driving an Uber, and it was $4 fare from the airport to the fancy hotel where they were having this board meeting. And I drove up, and the tip was included in the Uber deal. And he told me on the way over how he had driven up from San Bernardino in order to, to really better his life, that he was trying to make money. He's working part-time at night at MGM Grand Hotel, driving Uber during the day, and then trying to get some studying done. And it was just amazing to me how much effort, but nobody was speaking into that. And when I got out of the car, they pulled up in the fancy valet area of this little beat up car, and I jump out in my suit, my briefcase, and I tapped on his window and I said, "Could you roll down the window?" And he knew that I was upset and that there was something he must have been wrong that he did, but he'd only been in the car for 10, 15 minutes. And I said, "You know something? I bet that if I go in," and I pulled $20 out of my pocket, and I said, "If I put this $20 into one of those slot machines right in there," and I pointed, I said, "I think that probably is about as bad an investment as I can possibly make. But listening to you, I think if I give you the $20, I think I'm making one great investment in a young man that's going to do great things." And I handed him the $20 and just walked away without letting him have a chance. And this big guy jumped out of that car, raised his hands up, and he just started crying. And he had his hands up, and again, some guy trying hard needs someone just to give him a little affirmation. And it's such a simple deal on our part to do that kind of thing. And I know that he will never forget that. So we can speak that into other people's lives as well as our own kids.
Love it. And I will tell you that, when I think about growing up, I've had a few people that came into my life and just said, "I believe in you." And out of the blue, they planted those seeds. They said that anything was possible, and I wanted to make them right. And it became something that changed my life. When I look back, those little moments like that are the ones that really, I think, where we think it's just a small little token, $20 tip, right? It wasn't that. You said you believed in him and that you're investing in him. And that makes the world of difference to people, that it can grow for a lifetime.
Well, look at, you just sat down with that young man, Hunter Hales, and he was a kid who watched every minute of your show and followed this kid's like 14, 13.
Sharp kid.
And here
Asks
you sat
questions.
down. You said yes. You sat down and you inspired and you passed along a little mentorship, a little nudge. Well, yeah, he inspired you too. And then I think it's all these stories are so incredible. And I think if you want to read more about some incredible stories that, Richard, that you have passed down to your own children, experiences, and some of the ways to raise a child that's not entitled, that is ready to walk their own walk and have self-esteem. Your book has so many great stories from your own life. Entitlemania, available on Amazon Books. Fables of Fortune, I'm not sure where you can get that one, but is that on Amazon too? Same place. And I think what's interesting is all the sales of Entitlemania go to charity. You're not making a dime off this. You are donating every dime.
Neither book or any of the speaking either. That all goes to charity.
See, that is about giving back and making a difference in this world. And between the two of you guys, you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for being with us today, Richard.
Thank you.
Any final words,
Absolutely.
Glenn? I've got a great quote here. One of my favorites.
You're usually good at filling the air.
I've got a good quote here. One of my favorites. It kind of reminds what you two are doing and walking this walk. This is from one of my favorite women of all times, Maya Angelou. Mm-hmm. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And with that, we hope we made you feel good, inspired, and you're going to go out and spread some love and wisdom and inspiration in the world. Richard, thank you for joining us. Thanks for being part of our family.
Always a pleasure.
And thank you for being here. Join us next time. Follow Glenn on his Instagram, Richard on Facebook at author Richard Watts. Is that it?
Yep.
Author Richard Watts. That's 2 T's, WATTS. And this has been Grit Happens. We'll talk to you next time.
Talk to you all. Goodbye.